High Life, 2018 film made by Claire Denis, a science fiction slow burner starring Robert Pattinson and Juliette Binoche. It's this mix of sci-fi and psychological thriller and drama and sort of a philosophical exploration of some very adult themes. No doubt an experimental film, but disappointingly, it's not a successful experiment. Which is a shame because from the glimpses of trailers that I saw and posters, it looked interesting. And I have a lot of trust in Robert Pattinson, which may sound weird if you only know him from the Twilight Saga. But he is in fact a really good actor. He's just following a very similar path to Daniel Radcliffe. Star in a hugely successful series for teenagers, get so much money off of it that you basically no longer have to worry about it for the rest of your life, and then continue to act quite well in small indie movies, not for the paycheck, but because you just genuinely like to. The perfect example of such a film from Pattinson is Good Time, which I can't recommend enough. Back to High Life though. The movie opens with Pattinson on a spaceship together with a little baby named Willow. His character is clearly taking care of her and raising her, and it looks like the ship used to have a larger crew, be inhabited by more people, but there's no sign of them now. And then through flashbacks and cuts back to Earth, we begin to learn more about what kind of a mission this was and who was on it and what went wrong, basically. I don't want to spoil too much right away, but the gist of it is that the crew comprised of death row inmates who were sent to space, and this mission was a sort of an excuse to perform experiments and research that may otherwise have been considered unethical back on the home planet. So very soon after the movie began, I started noticing these inconsistencies and holes in the sci-fi element of the setting. The mechanics of the story didn't quite make too much sense, didn't fit. However, the film then seemed to only use this sci-fi element as a general setting, as an excuse to tell a story centered around other themes such as isolation, loneliness, inability to connect with other people, sex, sexual desires, and even deviant tendencies. A fair bit of warning here. It's a pretty heavy film. There are several sequences in it that are quite graphic and even downright brutal. However, there are more serious problems here. The main one is that none of those themes, perhaps maybe isolation, except perhaps maybe isolation, get explored enough and clearly enough. It's a difficult film to decipher as it is, but at the end of the day, I think that it tries to pretend like it's deeper than it actually is. In reality, a lot of the scenes and plot lines are there just for the sake of being there. The director doesn't make it clear what exactly this is all about, what it all means. The film as a whole is largely just confusing and messy. And that isn't helped by the fact that we continue to return to those sci-fi motifs as well. After a while of what seems like veering towards philosophical exploration, the focus is once again put on those pseudo-scientific mechanics of the story, which continue to not work at all. The very key elements of the plot just don't make sense, and if you think about them, all the rest just crumbles around. Now, it's not all terrible. The atmosphere of the ship, the way that it's shot, the use of color, they're all pretty great and enhance this feeling of isolation and loneliness. The flashbacks to Earth especially are wonderfully grainy and have this old look to them. Made me think of Solaris and Stalker, honestly, which is quite high praise. And the acting isn't bad either, particularly Pattinson and Binoche inhabit their characters quite well. But unfortunately, good looks and acting cannot save this poor mess of a story. I had high expectations going into the film, and then they were just continuously lowered throughout the runtime, and at the end I was still disappointed. Conclusion is simple, it's not a good movie.